Hello there everyone again at YouTube. It's been a while since I made a video and I am very sorry about that. I've just been really busy getting stuff together because I'm leaving soon. In case you didn't know, I'm going to college in a day now. I'm leaving probably after this video gets put up. You'll notice I probably won't make a video at least for a week. That's because I'm doing something else that's going to be like a constant. I have to do it all day and night, and I really won't have any time in between to do anything else. So that's just for your information. That's what's going to be happening. I might try to get a Kuba and the Two Strings review up before then, but honestly I don't think it's going to happen, so just be prepared for that. Anyway, now on to the video. I skipped over reviewing a lot of movies this summer, either because I didn't see them right away when they came out, I didn't end up reviewing them as soon as I would have liked, and I ended up just going right past them, or I just didn't want to see them, and I saw them at a much later date where I could see them for free, and that's more or less exactly how my summer movie reviews have gone with some of these movies. So, I'm going to take a few movies that I did see in the summer that I have not reviewed on my channel yet, and I'm going to give you a brief review of each of them, and hopefully you'll see my opinion on some of them, and I can shed some light as to whether or not you should watch these movies. So, without further ado, let's get right up into my summer catch-up reviews. Now, yes, this first movie wasn't from summer. The rest of them will be, but this one specifically wasn't from the summer movie season, but it is one I did neglect to review, and maybe I'll do a bigger review on it sometime later, but right now that isn't what the case is going to be. So, first movie up is Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yes, we all know about this movie, and with DC movies lately, I don't know what's wrong with DC. Are they just trying? It's like when Amazing Spider-Man 2 decided they were going to start doing like their own big cinematic universe, and it failed miserably. Well, that's kind of what I feel like DC's trying to do, make this big cinematic universe, but they're really not doing a good job at it right now. So, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, as you know, involves the story of Batman and Superman and Ben Affleck as Batman. The Batfleck, if you will. And it takes place after the events of Man of Steel, in which Batman is considering that Superman is not safe for mankind, and he wants to take care of him, and then Superman's doing some stuff. He wants to stop Batman from doing vigilante stuff. I honestly can't remember too much about this movie. Really, nothing memorable happened in it, except, spoilers, but I don't care, except for Superman dying, and that's about it, really. And the infamous, at this point, Martha scene with the Kryptonite staff, and if you've seen the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about. Overall, the movie has great action, very good cinematography in my opinion. Ben Affleck as Batman is actually very good, of course, and honestly, character development and storytelling is not Zack Snyder's strong suit, at least not all the time. I thought Watchmen was fairly good, but I haven't read the graphic novel, so I don't know much how better the graphic novel is compared to the actual movie, but I did like Watchmen. And then Batman vs. Superman is just, other than that, there's not much I have to say about Batman vs. Superman. Ending sucked. It was way too long for its own good. And there you go. Batman vs. Superman, if I were to review it, it would get a score of to just go watch it in theaters. It's just okay. Now, starting at the actual summer movies, the first one I want to talk about is the Angry Birds movie. Here's the thing about video game adaptations. Sometimes they're either so bad, they're just hilariously amazing. Sometimes they're actually not bad, and they're more cult-like than anything, like Mortal Kombat, or the other really good one. I can't remember it at the top of my head, but like the Mortal Kombat one or whatever. and maybe the first Resident Evil movie. Overall, very cult movies, in that they have a kind of big followings, and they're really popular just because they're popular. And I honestly enjoy those two movies when I watch them now and again. But then you have, of course, the very, very bad video game movies. You have the UA Bowl movies. You have the video game movies that you can't take seriously because the filmmakers didn't take them seriously either. And that's why I have to say that Angry Birds, the movie, is actually, despite being based off a game with basically no story, is actually pretty okay for a video game movie. I gotta say, I was honestly shocked that this movie was not just completely awful. It was bad, don't get me wrong. I still wouldn't recommend you watch it, but it was just okay enough to make me go, I mean, whatever. It's harmless, I should say. That's the best thing I can say. It's a very harmless movie overall. You're not going to remember it in a few years. No one's going to remember it in a few years. And people will be like, there was an Angry Birds movie? Nah, you gotta be, you're kidding me, right? And, yeah, overall, it was just an okay movie. I'm not really gonna say much about the film, because you can kind of guess how good an Angry Birds movie is. Oh yeah, there's an entire scene at the end of the film in which they try to do the whole slingshot thing with Angry Birds and everything, and it's one of the most boring scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It's just like, hey, we're doing the Angry Birds thing. I mean, at least it respects the source material a little bit, but yeah, it's like doing it in a video game is completely different from showing it in a movie. It's like when you're at someone's house and you're watching them play a video game, but you're not playing the video game. And then it ends up boring you because you're not playing the video game. That's exactly how that scene plays out, and most of the entire movie plays out. And terrible voice casting, really not that good at all. Nothing surprised me. It was pretty average, run-of-the-mill, boring, animated comedy, whatever. Angry Birds would get more like a, maybe rent it, I would say. Honestly, there's nothing much to get from this film, and you'll be severely bored the entire time. So, there's Angry Birds, the movie. Oh, so next up is Alice Through the Looking Glass. So, if I'm not mistaken, this is based off another novel by the same person that wrote Alice in Wonderland. Can't remember his name at the moment, so I'm sorry about that. But this sequel to the Alice in Wonderland from 2009, which was directed by Tim Burton, this time it is not. And it's way more boring than the last one, too. I mean, at least with Tim Burton behind the movie, it has some creativity and, imagination in it. But in this one, it's horribly dull, bleak, boring, really stupid story. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what the heck that was about. And it overall, yeah, it's a boring ride. Alice goes back to Wonderland, and she has to save the Hatter from dying by figuring out where his family is, because the Hatter believes that his family is still alive, but no one else believes him, and he's dying because of this. Don't know why, don't ask me. And then she has to go to Time, the guy is... There's a person that's a guy that is actually to Time, the master of time, and she has to use his thing, whatever it's called, I can't even remember, to go back in time to fix past events. But in the end, she never actually fixes any past events because it's impossible to change the past, apparently, in this universe. And then, of course, with time, you have all the stupid time puns that you can think of course. Very, very boring movie, honestly. There's nothing much to this one. Don't go watch Alice Through the Looking Glass. Even I would even recommend I'd rather you watch the 2009 Tim Burton one, because that actually has some imagination and or thought put into it instead of a sequel crappy cash grab movie directed by someone. I don't even know who the director is now. And yeah, or go watch the original 2D animated one by Disney back in the 1950s. Go watch that one instead, because it's about 10 times better. Alice Through the Looking Glass, I would recommend you pirate it. Now, I'm sorry that most of this list has been negative so far, but that's kind of because, again, I told you at the beginning of this, most of these were movies I didn't want to see in theaters, and then I ended up seeing them for free later, but they were as bad as I thought they would be. So the next one is the second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. In case you don't know, there was one that came out back in 2014 or so, if I'm not mistaken. And it's better than the first one. Thank goodness for that. That was actually the best part about this. It was actually better. There were actually a few genuine fun moments I had in this movie, and it's not overly boring. There's some really bad CGI in the movie. It hurt my eyes to watch. There's some fun action sequences that are very cartoony, but that's kind of what they're going for, so I didn't really mind it that much. And overall, and Shredder's not a robot this time. Also, he has just a suit, like Shredder should have. And apparently he wasn't dead, I guess. I mean, I thought he died, but I guess not. Whatever. Not much to say. Megan Fox is just as bad as she was before, of course. Will Arnett is kind of gone. Yes, Will Arnett. That's his name. He is basically nowhere in the movie now, which is good. The guy who plays Casey Jones, I don't know his actual name, but he plays Green Arrow in Arrow, the TV show, and he sucks, as Casey Jones at least. Maybe it was just how they wrote Casey Jones, and that's why it was bad, but I'm not sure, honestly. What are you going to do? But other than that, the story was very simplistic. Character development between the turtles was nice, but overall, nothing else. And the movie was great in that regard. And overall, very simple movie. I'm going to give this one about the same as I gave Batman vs. Superman. I recommend you go maybe watch in theaters, but obviously that's not an option at this point. Oh, and the good movies just keep on coming. Neighbors 2 was a very forgettable comedy. I did not enjoy this movie. And it really sucked that I was actually planning on watching The Nice Guys again, which you all know I like a lot. I thought it's like one of my favorite movies of the year so far. But Neighbors 2 is just such utter garbage. I don't know why I watched it. I feel like I wasted my money, and that's why I refuse to go see Sausage Party, because it's another movie by Seth Rogen. At this point, I'm just convinced I'm not going to like anything by Seth Rogen. I don't get his humor. I don't care for it at all. Not that I'm like, that's a bad humor. I don't laugh at it. It's not funny to me. So there's that. And other than that, it's unfunny to me. I have a very biased, very, very biased opinion towards this, so you might not want to even trust my review and go see it for yourself, but I would say that Neighbors 2, you would want to pirate it. It's not good at all. Sorry. Okay, now we're getting into a little bit better movies. Central Intelligence was actually a fairly fun comedy, and that's about it. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's not much to this movie either, but overall, it's a fun comedy with The Rock and Kevin Hart, if I'm not mistaken. Kevin Hart is very toned down, thankfully, in this movie. You know how he yells in, every role he's in? Yeah, he doesn't do that as much in this movie, so I was like, wow, finally, Kevin Hart learned how to not yell, just to try to be funny yelling, instead of, actually trying to be funny with his dialogue, or, literally anything else. The Rock was very good in this movie. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, in case you don't know that's who that is. He did a very good job. I actually loved his performance because he's like this really huggable, like likable guy, and he's like all cool with everything, and he's like doesn't get angry at all, and it's just the best thing ever. I really actually liked his performance, and it's a very enjoyable comedy. And I would say that you should probably go watch this in theaters because it's a very enjoyable movie. Of course, that's just my rating. You can't actually watch this in theaters. And next, we are starting to finally get into the good movies. Finding Dory was a very likable film by Pixar. It's the sequel to Finding Nemo, in case you have not seen Finding Nemo. And more or less, it works well as a companion piece to Finding Nemo. What I mean by that is, if you haven't seen Finding Nemo, then it doesn't make sense to watch Finding Dory. Honestly, it will not make... There was a lot of references to the last film that you will not get. Some of the characters, the way they behave and their character development, and overall, it won't be there. There are definitely new characters in this, so it doesn't rely wholly on Finding Nemo as its ground for this movie. But it actually does work on its own as well. There's a few genuinely good moments in the movie. There are some scenes that are supposed to be sad or like tension filled, but you don't really feel it because they don't really give you any reason to feel like these characters are actually in trouble, and you know they're going to make it out in the end anyway. But there is definitely times in which you know that's going to happen, but you still feel the tension. You just don't feel it in this movie. Character development, overall on some of the characters, it was great. On some of the characters, it was very mediocre. Like, they were introducing characters left and right, and I'm like, we don't need this many guys. Come on. Ground your stuff down. You don't want to be Independence Day resurgence and have like 500 things going on, which they almost do, and it almost ruined the movie for me, but overall I really liked it as a nice sequel to Finding Nemo, but Pixar needs to step up their games in terms of sequel. I mean, except for Toy Story 2 and 3, what really, in sequel or prequel territory, have they done good besides Finding Dory at this point? Not much of anything, so here's hoping that their sequels in the future will be good. I have no hope for Cars 3, sorry. That's just what I feel. But Finding Dory is definitely worth buying on DVD. Next up is a movie that was directed by the same guy who did those 3 unconnected Liam Neeson movies, Unknown, Nonstop, and Run All Night, which I actually really liked all 3 of them. They're really fun, just thrillers you can watch. You can put it on TV and watch and have a fun time. And this movie is The Shallows, which is another thriller that would be a fun. You can just put it on your TV and watch it one day and just not really get bored and have a fun time watching it. And The Shallows, it's basically more or less exactly that. It's not great. It's not a great movie by any means, but it actually is very clever, and I love that we have a female lead in a movie that's not a complete idiot, so that's nice as well. The story is basically a girl is out on this hidden beach that really not many people know about, and she goes and surfs there and whatnot, and she had just recently she had either dropped out of college or she just wasn't going to her classes, and so she's out surfing, and she sees a not beach whale, but a whale that's been getting eaten on, and she encounters this lone shark in these shallow waters, and she's on this little rock in the middle of this why can't I think of it? This shore, and she can't really get to shore because of this shark, and she's only just that close away. And it's a really fun movie, actually. I was glad I went and watched this one. I would recommend you guys go and watch this one. I think it is definitely worth buying on DVD. Next film up is The BFG, directed by Steven Spielberg, and this movie has a little girl in an orphanage who is kidnapped by a giant one night and taken to this mystical land where giants exist, but it turns out he's not the biggest giant, and the bigger ones, and he's just like the runt of the litter of all these other giants. So they have to figure out a way to stop these giants somehow and gain peace in the world and keep children from getting kidnapped and eaten. Yeah. The BFG, it's a very likable movie. I would say it leans more kid-friendly than a family movie, because family movies, the ones meant for like adults and kids, you can definitely tell the difference between those and movies that were made more so for kids than anything else. And this movie is a bit leaning towards a more kid-friendly movie. It's rated PG for some reason. That makes absolutely no sense. Yeah, there's nothing overly complicated about its story. It's based off a picture book, if I'm not mistaken. And it is just okay. As in terms of Steven Spielberg, I really wish it had been a little bit better, but you can only take so many liberties with an adaptation before people get super mad at you, so he probably was trying to work with the best with what he had. And I actually really enjoyed the movie up until the third act, in which they get the royal government of Great Britain of England, I should say, Great Britain, England. They get the royal government and the Queen of England to go into the land and capture the giants. I'm not kidding, and it's one of the most cringy parts of the entire movie, and that's why it keeps from being a really fun movie. To me, it really just gets boring in the last part of the movie. So I gotta say that BFG's maybe just worth renting. Nothing more, nothing less. I wouldn't spend too much money to go and watch this movie. And we have another comedy. So, Mike and Dave need wedding dates. Okay, wasn't as bad as Neighbors 2. I will give it that much. There were actually some scenes that legitimately had me cracking up. But I just don't like raunchy humor. I don't know what it is. I just can't get behind it. Sometimes, if it's just taken so far, I just get disgusted almost. Like, I need to, like, vacate my freaking stomach and just vomit all over the place seeing raunchy humor. It just doesn't sit right with me sometimes, you know. And that's what most of this movie is compiled of, is very, very raunchy humor. And there are definitely some really good jokes and some really funny scenes in this movie, but overall, that was made up a lot of the movie, a lot of the end of the movie too, so it ended up just turning me off really hard to the movie itself, and I would say that Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates is probably just worth pirating. The next movie, The Secret Life of Pets, is Illumination Entertainment's latest film. I've liked basically nothing from Illumination Entertainment. In case you don't know, they're the same people that did Despicable Me, Despicable Me 2, Minions. They think they did Hop, if I'm not mistaken. Really, movies that I don't care for at all. Despicable Me 1, I enjoyed, partially. And other than that, everything else, I've just hated completely by them. I really don't care for any of their work. And Secret Life of Pets is basically no different. There was one scene in the movie, I will say, involving the snake that made me... I was dying of laughter in the theater. It was hilarious. But other than that, it really doesn't do much of anything. And it's basically a copy of the story from Toy Story, involving secret lives of something. As always, in all these kids' movies, we have to freaking do that, of course. And provides nothing original, is entirely unfunny, save for that one scene I mentioned. Kevin Hart is also voicing in this movie, and is just screaming again, of course. Why not? The ending, honestly, bored me to death. I just could not take sitting in the theater anymore. Thankfully, this showing of this movie in the theater was not accompanied by a bunch of yelling, crying, or annoying kids. So that was nice. I was really happy about that. But overall, Secret Life of Pets, boring. Don't watch it. Don't go out of your way to watch it, I should say. And you should just probably rent it. The next movie is Lights Out. It is based off a short film by the same director who directed the movie. And the short film, I actually enjoyed quite a bit. I went and watched it before I watched the movie, and I was like, that's pretty good. The movie itself, is a little bit different. There were definitely some scenes I really liked. I love the use of light to kind of combat this entity that people are trying to face. It actually kind of reminded me of The Grudge, not the American Grudge, the actual Grudge, like how this spirit is clinging to this one place, and anything that tries to get in its way or anything just ends up getting killed by it. And that was actually very interesting. I actually really loved that aspect of the movie. The ending was less than perfect, I will say. It is really it's dumb. The one of the final scenes in the movie, I was dying of laughter in the theater. It was so dumb. It was so bad. But most of the movie was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was necessarily that scary, but there was definitely times in which it was very scary, and it was a nice little horror film. Nothing too, ooh, this is like one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And it really was just fine. The short film was a lot better, I will say that much. But I would definitely say you should go out and see Lights Out, and it would be worth watching in theaters if it was still in theaters. It actually might be. It actually is in theaters still, so yeah, go watch it in theaters. Finally, guys, I really wanted to end on a high note overall of all the crap that I had to watch, and now I have to review it all, and you can tell now why I didn't really want to do full-fledged reviews on some of these movies, because they were just so bad. Like, there's nothing to talk about except how bad they are. But the last movie I'm going to leave you off with, the last one I'm going to talk about, is The Infiltrator, starring Bryan Cranston. This is a movie about a former accountant, who is taking money from the drug cartel, the Mexican or Colombian drug cartel, I can't remember. No, it's the Colombian one. And back in the 80s, and he is an informant, or not informant, crap. I'm getting all mixed up. He works for the FBI, obviously, and he goes undercover into these cartels, and he takes their money from them, but he makes it so that it is all traced back to them, and makes it so that they can't really get their money, and they get busted very easily. And it was actually a very, very enjoyable movie. Bryan Cranston, as always, did a fantastic job. There were some pretty intense moments in this movie, and it reminds you how scary the Colombian drug cartel was. Like, man. It was a very grounded movie, overall, in my opinion. And it really was a very fun, short thriller / action movie. It's not all action, don't let any of the trailers fool you either. It's just a very fun movie, and guys, I would have to say that Infiltrator is definitely worth buying on Blu-ray. Guys, I again want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I might have seemed a little bit iffy on what my opinions actually were of some of these movies, but some of them were just so bad I couldn't even take it. So that's just why. And I did just read and figure out that Infiltrator was about a guy who was working undercover in the FBI and figuring out how the cartel was laundering their money and everything, even taking control of this big bank in France. And that's basically what the story was. Sorry, I didn't know that before, but I figured it out. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. If you liked it, don't forget to like this video, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And again, guys, I'm gonna probably not be uploading for at least a week after this video goes up. Maybe I can get a quick review of Kubo and the Two Strings out, because I really want to watch that and review it for you guys, because I love Coraline and Paranorman. Leica is like one of my favorite animation studios. But other than that, that's all I have for you right now. So, I will see you later. Thanks so much again for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.